Hello, this is Joe Trahan, welcoming you to the All Me podcast from the Taylor Hooten Foundation, whose mission is to enlighten the world to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances. As the national leader on this subject, they communicate their educational messages through various methods, including this podcast. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of our All Me podcast. This is Brian Parker. I am honored to be back as your host for today's episode. Today, we're going to take an inside look at the world of strength and conditioning with our guest, Frank Velasquez. Frank has an extensive history in the strength training world. It goes back to his days working in Major League Baseball. Frank spent 15 years in MLB, starting with the Texas Rangers, and he progressed all the way into the Major League Strength and Conditioning Coordinator position for the Pittsburgh Pirates, where he worked there for 9 years. In 2012, Frank transitioned into the privatized world of strength and conditioning, opening up his own facility. Eventually, he became the Director of Sports Performance at Alleghany Health Network, which is where he works now. Frank developed the Sports Performance Department for AHN, so he's currently working with a lot of young athletes that are looking to improve their game and achieve their physical goals. This allows Frank to get a unique perspective on the current condition of youth sports, which is one of the things we're going to talk to him about. Are our young athletes being pushed too hard? Are they training too early or too often? What pressures are they currently facing? Along the way, Frank will provide us all with some tips on how we can achieve our goals the right way. So let's bring Frank into the show, talk about today's world of strength and conditioning. Frank, thanks so much for spending some time with us today, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here.
I just gave our listeners a little bit of background that you have in the field of strength and conditioning. And while we're going to cover that a little bit, I want to spend a good amount of our time talking about what you're doing and what you're seeing now. Saying that, it's important to start with your time in Major League Baseball because that is where we first crossed paths. So give us a little bit of summary on how that went. Tell us how your door opened up for you to get into baseball and kind of how your career progressed in Major League Baseball as well.
Sure. Well, I graduated from the University of Michigan in 1993, and I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to try to get into Major League Baseball as an athletic trainer at the time. Once I graduated, I started to send letters out. I sent 2 letters to each team, to the GM and to the farm director. And during that time, I went to work in a physical therapy clinic as an outpatient, as an athletic trainer in an outpatient physical therapy clinic. My first year out of school, I got 0 callbacks after sending, 60 letters out. My second year out, I got some callbacks and some interest and a couple of interviews. And then in 1995, my third year out, I actually was offered 3 jobs, the Texas Rangers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Montreal Expos, who no longer exist. They're the Washington Nationals. But I ended up taking the job with the Texas Rangers, and I started in professional baseball as an athletic trainer in the South Atlantic League in 1996. 97, I moved up to the Florida State League, still as an athletic trainer, and I stayed in that league for the next 3 years. During that time, strength and conditioning was becoming more popular, and I went out and got my CSCS, my Certified Strength and Conditioning Coaches certification from the NSCA. And in the year 2000, our Major League strength coach for the Rangers resigned. Our minor league coordinator was promoted, and then they asked me if I wanted to interview for the minor league strength and conditioning coordinator for the Rangers. So I did that and started that track in 2000. Did that for 3 years, 2001 and 2, and then in 2003, I got the call to the big leagues with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So my wife and I, funny story, we were planning to move to Surprise, Arizona with the Texas Rangers because we were in Port Charlotte, Florida for all those years that I was with the Rangers because that's where their spring training site was. And my dad was going to drive a U-Haul out to Surprise with me. And a week before, I got the call from Pittsburgh, and I interviewed and I got it. And I found out on a Friday. I was supposed to leave on Monday when the U-Haul, and I told my dad, I said, hey, we got a detour. We're going to Pittsburgh instead. So we drove the U-Haul up to Pittsburgh, and that was 2003. I spent 9 years in the big leagues as the head strength conditioning coordinator with the Pirates. and 11 was my last season, and we've been here ever since.
Yeah, it's funny how life kind of creates that path for you. You said at the beginning that you knew you wanted to get into baseball. Why was that? Were you a baseball player growing up? Were you an athlete growing up, or were you more into kind of the working out, conditioning, PT stuff growing up? I mean, how did your early interests and outlets kind of connect to wanting to get into that field in the first place?
Sure. Great question. I was a baseball junkie. I think most every kid, little boy I knew at the time wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. I don't know if you can say that now, but back then it seemed that was the goal for a lot of us. So I loved baseball. My dad played when I was younger. He played fast pitch softball, and I come from a very baseball and athletic family. I played football, baseball, and basketball growing up. So yeah, baseball was my thing, and I knew, I would have liked to made it as a player, but once I realized there were other avenues, and I was told I wasn't good enough, I still wanted to continue my trek to get to professional baseball and eventually the major leagues.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest with you, it's the fact that you made it and had such a successful career. I even think that's rare. I know a lot of kids kind of dream of playing in the sport, but honestly, even working in the sport is tough to get into. That's when, as I was in college, I studied sports management, wanted to work in sports, put in some time in the minors as well. Like it's a lot just to get that foot in the door. So the fact that you pulled it off and then made it all the way to the top, that's impressive just on its own. And I know you had a great career in baseball until, like you said, 2011, around that time. And then you left to start your own performance PT business. Was that something you had always had in the back of your mind along the way, or kind of like when you got the Pirates job, was that kind of just where life decided to take you at the time?
That's where life decided to take me. That one thing in pro sports, Brian, is there's a saying that, you get hired to get fired. And sure enough, in 2011, there were changes made, and, the athletic trainers and myself and the physical therapist, pretty much most of the sports medicine staff was let go. And, it's something that you kind of expect, but you never truly expect, if you're doing a good job and things are going well. But, sometimes you can see the writing on the wall. And I was blessed to have a couple of other opportunities after I was let go to interview for other major league teams at the time. There were 3 or 4 positions open. And I prayed about it and talked to my wife. And my son was 7 at the time, 7 years old. I just decided it was time to do something a little different. I loved what I did in pro baseball, and I was blessed, as you said, to do it for as long as I did. But I felt it was time for myself personally and professionally to kind of change lanes. And so I ended up staying out and started my own sports performance training center. And I know you asked, was this something I had planned? And no one ever really, if I didn't get let go, I may still be there. You don't leave those jobs on your own. But if it were to happen, this is something I did have in my mind, that I wanted to bring this level of service that I was accustomed to in college and professional sports. I wanted to bring that product to the masses, to the youth, to the high school, to the community. And that's kind of what I did in 2012.
Yeah. And I mean, life has a way of working things out. I also know that family plays a huge role in that kind of thing. And I know that the schedule and the hours go into working in Major League Baseball. I'm sure that played a role in whether or not I should stay in that as well. I mean, you guys have a lot more invested than people may realize. And so I think that's what you did is a really natural transition. I know you've been enjoying that for a while. So you kind of left that and stuck with the strength and conditioning. You kind of moved into the privatized strength and conditioning field for a little bit. And you've progressed that career now up into your role now, which is the Director of Sports Performance at Alleghany Health Network. So let's start by just telling our listeners a little bit more about what AHN does, and then specifically in your shoes, what are your roles and responsibilities within that group?
Sure. And again, I want to step back a sec. Yeah, I mean, family, that was a big part of why I stayed out. And I was able to coach my son. And again, we adopted my second son, and that allowed me to, I mean, like you said, you're at the mercy of the schedule when you're working in professional sports. And as much as we love it, there's a lot of sacrifice. So when I got out, I started my own business, and I did that for 4.5 years. After the 4.5 years, the doctors that I worked with the Pirates were all tied into the Alleghany Health Network. And what that is, it's It's a network of 7 hospitals. And after a few years, they were sending me a lot of business, and they said, you know what, we don't have a sports performance department within our network, so we would like to bring you on to build it. And so, you know, I had a business partner at the time, and I ended up leaving. I sold my part of my business to her, and I came on with the network, and that was in late 2015. And I've been with the network ever since. So we have the 7 hospitals. We have 2 facilities in the north and south parts of Pittsburgh that are specialized locations for that active adult, that developing youth, that performing athlete, where we offer physical therapy and sports rehabilitation. We offer strength and conditioning, speed and agility services, and then we have a whole recovery line of services that we offer to individuals and teams. Part of it's a cash-based business, which is very different for a hospital, and the physical therapy part of it is an insurance reimbursement-based business. So, you know, we started that 4 years ago, and we have 2 facilities. We're building a 3rd. We're already talking about a 4th. So, you know, our Institute of Orthopedics really loves it. You know, when a doctor does a Tommy John or an ACL, they know that they're going to be sent to a space that the therapists are very well educated with the athlete and the active body. And we also have the tools and the expertise to take that patient from surgery through therapy all the way back up to game speed, which a lot of places, you know, they may run out of visits, or they may not know how, or they don't have the equipment to take that person back up to game speed, whether that be, you know, a recreational runner or a high performance athlete. So that's kind of our niche on the market. That's what we're doing now. And you know, we really enjoy it. It's a pleasure working with a ton of other athletes at different levels. You know, we're working with ballet dancers and BMX riders, and, you know, all of our traditional sports, and soccer and field hockey and lacrosse. And it's a true pleasure. And I think our service is a great benefit to the Pittsburgh communities.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's also cool that you get to take what you learned at MLB, which, I mean, at that point, you're trying to get back the highest level athlete in the game, get them healthy and active and conditioned all the way back to the top. Now you get to take that and apply that to really all kinds of different people that are across the map. So as a whole, it's a much different demographic than just Major League Baseball players, but I'm sure the 2 overlap pretty often. As a whole, if you look at kind of your clients, your demographic base as a whole, I know you kind of mentioned some of the variety of different people that you work with. What kind of age group do you think you're working with the most at HN? Is it just a lot of younger athletes looking to progress their athletic careers, or is it really scattered all across the map?
That's a great question. You know, when I opened up my business back in 2012, you know, our target market was really that high school athlete, because there were so many of them. And we're going to talk about, you know, the state of youth sports, I'm sure, at some point in this call. But it's only gotten bigger over the past 10 years. But to answer your question, we're kind of spread out. I mean, we see a lot of ex-athletes that are working now. We see a lot of people that are just vested into their own wellness, a lot of first-time runners or competitive runners, marathoners and ultra-marathoners and triathletes, just active people. And it's nice to have those, because that takes up part of the day where we would be slow if I was just working with school-aged athletes during the school year. So, you know, I would say middle school all the way up to, you know, our elderly age, we're seeing pretty steady. And I would say if I had to look at the numbers, I would say that high school, college, 25 and under age probably is our wheelhouse, but there's quite a few of outside that bell curve as well. Yeah,
I'm happy to hear you say that you work with all kinds of different people and really just active people, because I know that's really a lot of who's going to listen to this episode and this podcast. It's not necessarily just your high performance athletes or students that are looking to make a team, whatever. It's just people in general that have goals, physical goals of all different types, and are active. And, you know, we'll get to some questions later on how we can kind of help those people achieve those goals. So that I'm happy to hear that this is really applicable across the map. But to kind of take your first part of that answer, I do have some questions that do center around the state of youth sports, because I think that's a really interesting part of this conversation that I want to have with you. And you being kind of on the front line with a lot of younger athletes, you see a lot of the stuff that's out there and that's changing. So this is going to be a hard question to pin down, because it's, I guess, a generic way to look at things. But since you work with a good bit of youth now, What are your opinions on the state of youth sports? Because I can speak from my own experience. It's changed a lot from even when I was younger growing up. I see things like travel ball and year-long sports and all kinds of stuff that are out there now, new technology. There's a lot more access than when even I was a little bit younger. So generally speaking, what's that state look like? In your opinion, are we pushing kids too hard? Are we asking them to start at too young of an age, or is this just a part of the times now?
I think it's unfortunately it's society, and it's no longer youth sports, it's youth business. They're businesses. People make a living with their travel organizations or running facilities like mine, which isn't just geared towards the youth, but there's a lot more of organized sports than there ever used to be. I don't see as many kids out just playing anymore for the fun of it, coming into a sandlot and creating their own games with no adults involved, figuring out the rules on their own. We used to play this game called Strikeout in a parking lot against a building. We would get a rock and draw the square and have a tennis ball or a rubber ball and just play, one-on-one, or if we had teams. Now, if it's not organized, Brian, it's really not getting done. So practices and games and tournaments, and these tournaments are vacation destinations. So, families are spending, thousands of dollars on registrations to the organization and then travel for the different tournaments. They're playing in several different leagues, sometimes different sports in the same season. So I do think there's some level of overuse, and that's putting it nicely. Yeah. It's job security for myself and my team, because these kids, they're doing more volume than the big boys do, and their bodies just aren't strong enough to withstand the volume. So we're seeing some of these adult-like injuries in our adolescents, our 12-year-olds, our 15-year-olds that are getting labral tears in their shoulders and ligament sprains on their elbow. And it's part of the reason also why I stayed out of baseball at the major league level, to help educate families and coaches and the players to do it better. I don't want to say it's wrong, but to do it better, maybe to reduce the risk of injury, to really let the kids' skills play out. I don't want to see them top out as a sophomore or junior in high school. I want to see them with their God-given ability and their love for whatever they're playing to get to where they want to get to. Everyone that comes to our doors has a goal, whether that be to carry their groceries up the stairs without less back pain, or to run faster or throw harder. Our goal is to help them reach it. So that's a long answer to your question, but
no, it's the answer I kind of was expecting. It's kind of the sense that I feel as well, right? Like, I see kids playing baseball. It's not just a spring sport. It feels like it's a year-round sport now. And you're right, like just the going outside stuff. I'm just like you. I can remember, like, when I was young playing baseball, I would take a tennis ball. I had a huge set of steps in the front of my house, and I would just make up a 9-inning game in my head and throw it against there. And sometimes it would pop up, sometimes it'd be a ground out. And I don't know, simple things, right, that I would do to pass the time until it was next season. And now I feel like there is no next season. It's always season, right? So, and I think while kids in the moment might feel like, oh, this is fun, I think that also, like, on the back end, it's creating a lot of pressure on kids. And that pressure is one of the things we talk about when we do our education. That's one of the reasons why I asked you that question in the first place, is because when I'm on the road and I talk to young people and young athletes a lot, not only are they constantly being told to do this or play this or start at this age or whatever, that in combination can also get with the message of, hey, look, while you're doing this, you need to get as big as you can, as strong as you can, or maybe lose some weight, get faster, right? Like, our kids hear that a lot now. It's very common terminology for our young people. And sometimes, the adults that are telling them this, they just might not have the knowledge of how to do that safely like someone like you would. So this isn't done with any kind of ill intent, but I do think it's something we need to be aware of because of that pressure. So, coming from your point of view as someone that does know how to safely get bigger, stronger, faster, whatever that may be, what message would you send to those adults out there that aren't trying to push kids into doing something they shouldn't, but maybe they are telling a young person these types of things without really having the resources on how to do that? What would you tell to the adults that may be telling our kids that?
To just piggyback on your point, yeah, there's a lot more pressure on our youth at a much younger age, to get out and practice, or to win a tournament, a little trophy, which no one will remember a couple of days after the tournament's done. But the pressures that these young ones are meant to deal with, it's just too soon. And it starts to squash their love for the game. So I guess to the parents, and some of the coaches, my message is, keep it fun. I'm a coach. I raise my voice, but I want it to be coaching, not yelling. And as far as like physicality, I see it all the time. My coach, my goal is to, because our kids in our intake forms, they write down, why are you here? I'll see it. I need to gain 20 pounds. So it'll come up in conversation during evaluation because we touch on nutrition and wellness and they say, yeah, my coach or my parent or, my buddy, or it's to gain weight or to lose weight. And to those people, our focus is, and the way I handle those clients is, okay, well, all right, I'm not going to guarantee we're going to gain or lose, but I tell you what, if we strength train under our methodology with consistency, that means you got to show up and bring your A game every day that you're with us. If you do that and you take care of your wellness habits, how well you drink, staying hydrated and eating and sleeping and recovering. And we do that over time, 2 months, 3 months, let the chips fall where they're going to fall. Our goal is to make you stronger, more agile, more flexible, whatever our goals are, wherever we find your restrictions, those are our goals. Let's take our mind off the scale. And if we do these things consistently and you're throwing harder or jumping higher or running faster or hitting the ball further, whatever your other goals are, let's focus on those goals. That's what I'm focused on, not really what's on the scale. Because if I can make you stronger and more explosive without, quote unquote, gaining 20 pounds, wouldn't you rather have that? So that's kind of how I word it and navigate it, not to squash what they're coming in for, because I don't want to belittle anybody, but let's just change our area of focus to the strength and the nutrition and the consistency and function, what you do as a skill on the field, as opposed to I need to gain weight or lose weight.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I tell people as well. It's, if they're told those kinds of things, it's not that we can't try to reach those goals, but we've got to give them resources, right? I mean, I can just speak from my own personal experience. I grew up as a 6.5-foot kid that was 180 pounds on a good day. I played basketball, and I was just told all the time to get bigger because that's what I was supposed to be as a tall guy on a team. But I mean, no one really helped me out. And so that's the other half of this equation. It's like, it's not that we shouldn't give our kids goals or tell them things that could help them. That's fine. But what can we put in their hands, like you're saying, that's going to actually make that happen and make that happen in a safe and right way? Because what'll happen is if we don't give those kids those resources, look, I mean, I know this from talking with other students. Sometimes they're going to try to find a shortcut. I mean, sometimes it can drive them to do things they shouldn't do. They could take appearance and performance enhancing substances. They could try to look for an answer in a powder or pill. I know those things happen because they may not know the right way to achieve their goals. Have you, in your position, have you ever come across people thinking about taking those kinds of substances or stuff like that to get to where they want to go? I mean, if so, what's your message to them if that's ever happened to you?
Oh yeah. When I was in the pro ranks, I'd have a young player come up to me and ask my opinion on something or start to sniff around asking questions, and right away I'd squash it. Same here on the amateur level, working with the masses. You hear words, well, so and so is taking this, or they're asking questions about that, and our environment, the culture we created, Brian, in our facilities is very much of a family, very much of a team. Even though I have kids from different schools who might be rivals, and they're always in at the same time, and you start to watch out for each other, and that's what we preach. So I've heard some, hereabouts along those lines, and as a coach, I don't want to ruin trust with anybody or throw anyone under the bus, but you find a way to get to that athlete who might be sniffing around to take some supplement or try to find something on the internet, a PED, a performance enhancement drug, and we find our way to get to them and get them to open up and to us as a coach, because we're an unbiased ear. We're not mom or dad. We're not their skilled coach, and we give them the best, the most educated information we can, because you're right. They're going to go out and find it on their own. Not everyone has access to an expert, but if you do, seek out that expert. and find out why you want to take X, Y, or Z, because they'll give you the reason why you should not. If you rely on your buddy or the guy at the gym or the kid working at GNC or Vitamin World or any other supplement store, not to knock on those, but they're going to try to make the sale. They really don't have anything vested in you. They're looking to make a sale on a product. We want to educate. Listen, there's other ways to do it that are safer, that are truer, and they're legal. So those are the big points we hit home when anyone's kind of thinking about going down the road of maybe a supplement that's not certified by NSF, or, God forbid, some injectable or oral performance enhancement drug.
Yeah, the key word that you said there that I always pull out is education. That's, at the core of this podcast, core of everything we do, the core of what you're telling them. It's just education, right? So it's not altering goals. It's not telling kids, that's not possible. You can't do this or that. It's just, here's how we do it. Here's how we do it the right way, because that's what I tell parents and coaches all the time. Like, our students have access to this stuff. If they don't have somewhere to turn, that's where they're going to turn, right? Because it's in front of them. It's easy to find all this kind of stuff. So you're right. I mean, I think we have to talk with them. That's really what I ask for when I talk to most parents. It's just, look, have conversations with your kids. And if you don't know how to do things the right way, go find someone like you that can help you achieve that goal. It is possible, right? But we all have to work together to get there. So we're on the same page with that. So let's take that idea and then kind of start talking about how you can achieve your goals the right way. Like, where do we start and when do we start? Because one of the things that I'll run into a lot is when I'm talking to parents and kids that maybe are just kind of starting getting into youth sports. It could be like middle school age up in high school age. They'll start asking me, okay, like, oh, my kid's kind of small, like he's smaller than other people. When is it okay for them to start lifting weights? When can I hit them in the weight room? When can I try to start putting some weight on them? In your opinion, is there an age that's too young to really start a strength and conditioning program safely?
Yeah, I do think there's an age that's too young. We've had this BMX group. They tried to bring some 3, 4, 5-year-olds in to work with us as a group. Yeah, as much as we'd love to do that, that's a little young. Our wheelhouse, when people ask me, and I get the question all the time, when should they start? Middle school is when the age that we'd like to see kids come walking through our door, because it gives them a couple, 3 years to become educated and knowledgeable about this area of what could improve their game before they get to high school. And we pride ourselves in using or recommending age-appropriate exercises for our younger athletes and clients. We're not going to put everyone under the bar the first day they come in. We're very, very cautious of loading the skeleton too soon. We have growth plates, and there is science that goes, if you load that growth plate prematurely, it's going to cause it to close sooner than it should. So where we can inhibit somebody's stature and growth. So we don't want to do that. That middle school age is nice, starting them on body weight, some resistive tubing, just some movement drills. And then as they get stronger, they show that foundation strength and stability. Then we can start progressing them to, up the chain a little bit. But there is a method to the madness. Not everyone's going to squat and plyo jump, when they've heard their first month into our facility. And I think that's why people will pay the extra $1, because you can join a membership gym, for $20 a month, give or take. But our workouts, my facility and facilities like mine, they're a little more expensive per session. And because I think there's more science that goes behind it, and there's a methodology and a goal in mind. So it's that long-term athletic development. I'm not looking, a month from now. I'm looking 4 or 5 years from now, what I want Joey or Susie to look like. And I want to do the job where they continue to stay with us. And even after they go to college, they continue to come back to us, and their younger siblings and their parents. And, that's how you have a business like this thrive, through word of mouth. And they trust. Who am I going to trust my son with, as a dad, to take him to the weight room and to teach him the right way, not only with the weights, but nutritionally and recovery wise. Those are the people you're going to pay the extra $1 for, and it's worth its weight in gold.
Right. And, the other thing that's so valuable for something that you guys do is it's individualized. It's catered to that person that you're working with, right? Because, some of these questions I've even asked you are kind of broad. Well, what's the right age? Well, it may be different for different people, right? I mean, people develop at different ages, right? That's what I always tell students is, oh, I'm a freshman, and you're comparing yourself to a senior, well, you just can't, right? Genetics are playing a big thing in this as well. So that's a key thing that I know you guys take into account is, well, we're going to work with each specific person because each specific person is different. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well. So let's say that you have somebody come on board, it is the right time to start a program, but we're starting from scratch. We're starting from zero, right? And this can be at any stage of your life. This doesn't have to be a youth. This could be an adult as well. How do you get started with strength and conditioning training? Essentially, what is most important from your point of view when you want to build a foundation? What do we got to work on first?
Well, I think if someone's, they want to take their son to a performance training center, their daughter to a performance training center, the first thing is you want to make sure you get an initial evaluation. What am I dealing with? This is my first time I'm setting eyes on you. I need to figure out, where are you restricted and where do you have too much range? Where are you strong and maybe too strong or not strong enough? I need to find these things out by taking you through a kinetic chain assessment or a functional movement screen. There's different tools out there that you can do. And you use that information, to your point, to customize a program for, Joey or Susie, because they're different, not only gender and the sport they play, but I could have two freshmen and one's, 5'10" and 170, and the other one is 5 foot and 90 pounds. So they're different bodies, and it's not a one size fits all. So we start with the evaluation. We may give some homework with some corrective exercises to help, build some more stability somewhere or loosen up an area. But I want to create stability. I want to start building these foundation blocks so down the road I can safely and feel good about it adding lean mass to a frame. Because if the skeleton is not in some level of alignment and I just start adding mass onto a body, I feel I'm just setting them up for a bigger bang, bigger boom, bigger injury somewhere down the road. So we want to correct alignment, put their scaps in a good place or pelvis in a good place, make sure their skeleton's good, and then we'll start to, safely feel better about it, adding lean mass to that frame. Stability around the shoulders and the lumbar spine and the pelvis. We do a lot of one-legged work, making sure we have balance and proprioception, and everybody has a dominant and a non-dominant side. We want to try to make them as even as possible, because some sports will create imbalances. If we talk about baseball and softball, if you throw right-handed and hit right-handed, you're doing everything rotating to the left. So, and it usually shows itself during our eval that you can rotate significantly further one way than the other. So we want to unwind you and build that program for you based on not only your sport specific, but position specific. We train our catchers a little different than we train our second baseman, and our quarterbacks different than we train our offensive tackles. So that's as specified as you're going to get. But building those foundation blocks around the key areas of the body to help correct alignment and build that foundation so we can safely do some more intense work later in the process.
Right. So that foundation is going to be a little bit different depending on who you're working with, but stability seems to be the key word there, which certainly makes sense to me. Let's say that I'm someone that does want to kind of start a program like that, does want to start working on my foundation, but I don't know, maybe I don't have access to someone like you or a facility like yours. Are there exercises or workouts that you recommend that I could even do from home, right? What's stuff that anybody out there could do regardless of their situation, equipment, setup, or anything like that?
That's a good question. You never know who has what at home. Like I talked about earlier before we started on the call today that, we're doing a lot of Zoom meetings all across the country right now with the COVID-19 stay home order. And some people have, full gyms in their basements or in their garage. And some people have, just a set of resistive tubing. So being able to build these programs, so we have 3 different levels. If you have a level 1 list of equipment, which is your body weight, a foam roll, a couple of pieces of ankle bands and some scap tubing, maybe an exercise ball, we can build a program based off of that. That's about $50 worth of equipment. Not that I don't want to assume that's affordable for everybody, but we should be able to get out and find some things to have that level of equipment so we can build a program. I think every family in America should own a foam roll or some type of soft tissue apparatus, and also a big exercise ball. With those 2 pieces and your body weight, we can we can build that where we're working on your posterior chain, putting those ankle bands around your knees and ankles and doing some clams and some different walks to build up your glutes, your butt cheeks. That's going to protect your hips. I'm a big fan of the plank. Planks aren't very functional. It's not like swinging a bat or throwing a ball, but I don't need any equipment to do a plank or a side plank. And that does work on some level of core stability. So we're going to prescribe some of those plank exercises, and then doing, some resistive tubing for our posture. Poor posture is an epidemic right now with cell phones and texting and video games, and not just for our kids, but I see people with poor posture at any age, and gravity's constantly pulling on us. So we focus on those muscles in between your shoulder blades to pull your shoulders back. Whether you're a ball player or a plumber or a soccer player, we want to create improved posture. So if you have a piece of tubing, great. We can do some what we call 4-position tubing, different levels, or our Y's, T's, I's, and W's, where you're just lying face down on the ground and you put your arms in the Y position or in the T position or I or W, and you could have nothing in your hand or maybe a couple of cans of peas or bottles of water, something light where you can do these Y's, T's, I's, and W's to create scapular strength in the posture area. So, picking a posture exercise, picking that core stabilization, and then, if you have ankle bands for the glutes, great. If not, anything done on one leg can help improve your glute strength. So one-legged exercises like a reverse lunge or maybe a box step up or a split squat. Those are some exercises you can also do with just your body weight or some light dumbbells. And that kind of rounds out what I would say. If you're going to get started, you look into those, pick an exercise for those 3 parts of your body, get some foam rolling going. If you have an exercise ball, you can do some curls and bridges with them. But I would start there.
Yeah, you made me, as you were talking, you made me pull my shoulders back and make sure I was sitting up straight just while you were talking, just as you were saying that. No, that's all great. That's what I wanted our listeners to get a few tips, just because, right now, a lot of us are at home more than often, but even beyond that, just we want to make sure everybody can achieve their goals regardless of what kind of access you have. So that kind of stuff is important. The other kind of side of things that I want to get our listeners a couple tips on is recovery. Because let's say we are in the middle of a program and, we also need to make sure that while we are staying active, we're also recovering at the same time. And I know that's a general sense, but I have a 2-part question in regards to that. Number one, is it possible to overtrain? Can I work out, be active too much? And then if I am, what are some tips that you can share in regards to recovery? How crucial is it to make sure that is built into my schedule?
Answer 1, can you overtrain? Most definitely you can. And we see it all the time, whether you're taking too many ground balls or you're running too many miles or you're in love with the weight room and you just lift every day. Yes, you can overtrain. So I think rest and recovery are overlooked. I think nowadays people feel if they're not doing something, they're falling behind. They feel more is better, quantity over quality. So we reverse that. We start to preach less is more, quality over quantity, and to really respect those, what we call low activity days. It doesn't mean you're going to sit on the couch and do nothing all day, but it's a lower, I'm not lifting, I'm not doing a hard run. I may do a yoga class. I may, take the dog for a walk or do something very low intensity, ideally twice a week if you can during a training season. And you'll find that enhances your quality of work after your recovery day. So yes, we preach it because overtraining is a real thing, and you'll see the symptoms. You'll start to get some insomnia. You'll start to get lack of performance. You'll start to feel it in your body. You're not bouncing back as fast, and it's a real thing, and it's something that people need to know how to 1, deal with or to get out of, and 2, try to step in front of it so we don't get to that point. So some of the different, to answer your second question, recovery is like that home gym we were talking about. Some people have Normatec leg boots and a cryotherapy sauna at their disposal, and some people don't. So we need to know how to recover with the tools we have. And everybody recovers different. Some people like a light massage from a massage therapist or their athletic trainer, and some people, feel like they can just do some diaphragmatic breathing or a flush on a bike or some time on the foam roll. So whatever it is, make sure it works for you. And some of the tools, like we said, a foam roll, a light bike flush, meaning low intensity, a 10, 20-minute ride on a bike, diaphragmatic breathing, just slowing things down, maybe a little meditation piece. Definitely your wellness practices. How well am I staying hydrated? How well am I eating and in my sleep? That all plays into recovery. I could be doing everything right, but if I'm sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night, I'm not recovering to my fullest. Or if I'm not staying properly hydrated or feeding my body the way it needs to for recovery and performance, am I getting enough protein? Am I getting enough carbohydrates? These are easy things that we can do, Brian, that everyone needs to do, let alone recover. I need to eat, sleep, and drink, so I need to educate them on how to do it better. What else is there? Stretching, of course, and we talked about some of those other pieces, the vibration units, the cryotherapy saunas, the cold tubs, the Normatec or the other recovery pump boots. There's lots of ways out there to do it now. I think it's becoming more popular, which is good, but as a performing athlete or an active adult, you need to recognize when your body needs it, and you need to have a way to do it. Just don't slide past it and say, well, I'm going to fall behind, or I should be working because so-and-so's working. Come up with your routine and make sure that recovery and rest and regeneration is part of that weekly routine.
It's a really important piece of the puzzle. It's something that we always make sure we talk about, but it's also just one of many pieces that you also discuss. We've done other podcasts on sleep and how that affects performance. We did a podcast on protein and the role that plays in all this, right? It's just, we can't just say, oh, okay, I'll work out and then take a break and work out. There's a whole lot of things that go into that word performance, right? It's not as simple as it may sound when it comes across, but I do know that recovery is a piece that you just can't leave out, regardless of what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. So I think those are all really good tips. So those are great things. If I'm at home, things I can, work on. Let's say I've decided, okay, I've done what I can at home. I want to take this to the next level. I want to start working with somebody like you. Let's say I'm somebody that looking for a program. I'm not local to you. What should I look for in regards to picking a facility, picking the right place if I want to find someone to help with strength training or physical therapy or recovery? How do I make sure I'm working with someone that is doing it right?
That's a great question. When I was with the Rangers and I was in charge of the minor league development, strength conditioning, these guys would go, even in the big leagues, these guys go home. They go all over the world. And that's really the time that I get to train them. But, they're all over the place, so you can't do it effectively. So I would encourage these guys to find somebody in their vicinity that they could, hire or train with to keep them, number one, keep them accountable. Because it's really easy to do it on your own, to say, I'll do it tomorrow. I don't feel like doing it today. But if you're paying somebody, you're going to be more apt to show up, which was big. So I would educate my players on, this is what you need to look for when you're looking for somebody to work with you. And I do the same thing with our, anyone asking me. Number one, check their resume. Check their resume, ask around for the facility. What's the reputation of that facility? Now, within the facility, they have coaches, several coaches, tell them what kind of animal you are. I'm a baseball player. I'm a soccer player. I'm a distance runner. And okay, hey, I have the perfect person for you. And they're going to throw Sarah. She's going to be the strength coach working with you. Okay, great. Sarah, I'm going to interview Sarah. What's your background? You don't have to give me your resume, but, I ran in college and I was an All-American and, okay, well, tell me your credentials as a strength coach. Well, I'm a CSCS or, I have ASMI certification. Those are the things, I interview them just as much as they're going to do the evaluation on me. I want to find out about them. I want to make sure that I'm going to train with, or I'm going to have my daughter or son train with somebody that knows how to train what they are. I don't want to send a runner to a football strength coach. And nothing against that football strength coach, but I would like to send them to someone that's going to know how to train that animal better. So, look at their credentials, make sure they have a reputable strength certification that took them, years to get. There's a couple of those certifications out there that you need to have a 4-year degree in exercise science just to sit for that certification. It's not a weekend class. So I'm going to look for those types of certifications. And I'm going to ask around about the reputation of the facility. Those are the big things. Know who you're going to train with, ask those questions, and try to make the best decision possible, whether it be for yourself or, someone you care about.
A little bit of research goes a long way at the end of the day, and it doesn't take long, but just checking on those few things and just talking with someone will get you a pretty good idea on whether this is someone that you can trust and someone that's going to help you achieve your goals, but help you achieve them the right way. And that's what we want more than anything. And so that's where we'll kind of bring this whole thing full circle and kind of wrap this up with kind of my last question for you. And this is another kind of broad sense question, but you work with a lot of young athletes, a lot of young people. We've talked about the state of that over the course of this talk. What's your general advice out there for any young person that wants to reach a goal? I don't care what it is, wants to make a team or lose some weight or get a scholarship, whatever that may be. What's a key thing that you would tell them, knowing everything that you know throughout your career?
Seek that expert's opinion. If that expert doesn't live under your roof, have mom or dad, or if you're an adult, have someone help you do it. That's what we're out there for. I can help you navigate through this journey and help you avoid some landmines, myself and people like me in the industry. And if you don't have that person, then, you got to work at it, because these goals are not handed to people. We earn them. You earn them. And if you're going to do that, get on a sound strength conditioning plan and get on a sound, weekly, daily nutrition, hydration, sleep plan, recovery, all the things we talked about, Brian, in the last hour. These are the things you need to make sure you're checking the box if I'm on this road. These are the things. If I want to become a better whatever, and I believe everyone's a performer, whether you're an athlete or not, everyone performs at some level. If I want to do it better, how can I get there? Seek out that expert, or these are the things I'm going to do. Making sure I'm taking care of my wellness. I have ownership in that. Making sure I'm physically taking care of myself. Making sure, mentally, the mental skills and the conditioning, I'm taking care of myself. And then, the wellness piece. So yeah, those are the things that I would tell anybody trying to do what they do better is check some of those things out.
Yeah. Hard work. It just boils down to that, right? I mean, nothing out there is easy, but I always tell people, you put in the work, regardless of how long it takes you to get there. When you get there, oh man, it's going to feel so much better that way, knowing that you've achieved that goal, knowing the work you put into it, but also knowing that you did it the right way. That's what's going to make it all worth it in the long run. So we know that you've been doing things the right way for a long time now. We applaud you for helping others achieve their goal the right way. And we appreciate your support that you've shown us all along the way. We truly appreciate that and the advice you gave our listeners today. All right, I got one more thing for you. Every time we do our podcast, we always try to get to know our guest on a little bit different level. So I got a couple, we call them curveball questions, just random questions. I didn't send you, just for me to get to know you more and put you on the spot a little bit. All right, so first one's kind of related to what we've been talking about. All right. I want to start a home gym. I've decided that that's my mission while I'm here for the year. I go online. I've got enough money to buy literally one piece of equipment. Which one should I buy?
Kettlebell.
All right. That's a good one. I don't even know how many exercises you could do with kettlebell, but I imagine there's quite a few, huh?
Yep. That's it. That's what I'm buying. I can do a lot of things with a kettlebell.
Okay. I was going to go like Bowflex, but I feel like that's cheating, right? That's too many wrapped into one.
Well, let's talk about cost. I mean, you can buy a Bowflex, and I could buy a kettlebell for less than $100. I don't know how much I can buy a Bowflex for.
Yeah, I don't even know if they still sell them, to be honest. I'm sure they do, but I'll check on that. All right, that's the first one. Second one is not related to anything that we had talked about before. And I ask you this one because I know you live in Pittsburgh. I have visited Pittsburgh many different times. I've gone in the winter when it's pretty cold. I've gone in the summer, right, when it can get pretty warm, right? So you have pretty wild swings there. If you had to live in a place that only snows all year long or is always above 100 degrees all year long, which one are you heading to?
Snow.
That's fair.
I'm born and raised in Michigan, man. I'm a Wolverine at heart, and I know when it's cold, I can always dress warmer, and I'm not afraid to shovel. I'm 48, so it gets a little achier, but I'm okay to shovel, and so yeah, I'll go where there's snow.
Yeah, I'm torn. I think 100 degrees would get old pretty quick. At least I can throw on some jackets and shovel and get a workout in. So that makes sense. I forgot about the Michigan part. If I'd known that, right, that That would answer my question right away. So perfect, man. Well, thanks again for all your time. I know our listeners learned a lot from you today. For those that want to learn more about the Alleghany Health Network, you can visit ahn.org. And also in the show notes, I'll put a direct link to your sports performance department so they can go on there and click on that and see everything that you guys do and learn more about your facilities and what you guys have going on there. And if you guys want to learn more about our education programs and how we inspire others to achieve their goals the right way, you guys can always visit our website, taylorhooten.org. There's tons of information there for you guys. We appreciate the time and support, Frank. We look forward to crossing paths again down the road, man. Thanks so much for the time.
Brian, thanks for having me on, and just kudos to Donald and Don and the Taylor Hooten Foundation. I'm a big fan, always have been, of what you guys are doing, your mission, and we're all in, man. We're all in this together, and continue the great work you're doing. So God bless all of you. Thanks again, Brian.
Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks for listening to the All Me podcast from the Taylor Hooten Foundation, a nonprofit organization leading a national campaign to enlighten people to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances and inspiring people to live and compete without the use of these substances. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and tune in to our next episode.